Hi, I'm Maynard with First and Foremost, and today we're going to be doing a renovation that includes a deck extension and screen porch add-on. And I'm really excited to get started with this job as it is for a really good friend of mine. So let's get going and make it happen, Captain. We're going to completely remove this lower roof here that slides underneath the overhang of the existing house. We're going to remove that completely and take all the facing, which is decking boards, rails, benches, grab rail, all of this is going to be completely removed. A majority of the supporting posts are also going to be removed, and we are going to extend this deck, which is currently 12 foot long, and we're going to make it 16 foot that way by about 32 feet this way. And on this end of the deck, we are going to have a 16 by 16 screened in porch. So to get started with this, we are just going to do a lot of the basic demo, and we really need to make sure that we inspect the condition of our post, girder beam, and joist. We have our power slides with us today, guys. These are not regular slides. These are 100,000 view slides. So let's make sure we hit that like and subscribe button and really smash that like button if you have it all possible and know how to slide up there and touch that thumbs up. The one thing I will say though, to let's save some space in the dumpster, I think we need to cut these things down into smaller portions. I don't even know why we're taking this thing apart like this, TJ. Who told you to take all this trash off in a bunch of pieces? I did. Well, I tell you what, this is going to turn out to be a nice piece of property. But you're gonna have to do something about these gnats. I don't really know if there's what you can do about them, but if there was not these gnats, guys, we probably wouldn't be building this screen porch. So we're gonna endure these gnats because that's probably what provided us this job. There is something here that I'd like to show you guys. There are different alternatives in the removal of your decking board process. We are going to cut in between the joist sections approximately every 4 foot so that our waist will be about 4 foot long, and also, more importantly, will not have a ton of nails from end to end and just require a lot of cranking, bending, pry bar issues. If we cut a couple of these in between here, it'll make it a lot easier for us. They'll come right up with either a roof spade and or bar, and we'll be able to avoid a lot of small pieces and a lot of big pieces. By only cutting it every 4 foot, it's still safe to walk on. You can see I can walk on this cut edge here, and just makes it a lot smaller and more manageable piece to tear off your deck. And if one guy gets started, you know, albeit some of these joists have been here for a very long time, they'll come right off. It's a really manageable size and won't take up a whole lot of room in our dumpster. I tell you what I could do to make a whole lot of money. I'm gonna make some construction slides. 12 foot exactly. Yeah, I'm gonna make some steel construction slides with memory foam. The condition of the joists are that some of them are in better shape than others, Chip. So we're probably going to remove a few of these. I did bring some replacements just in case this happened because I kind of knew it was, I pretty much knew that it was going to happen. So I got the 2x10s to go around the bands. I got all those brand new. I'm going to come remove the two. The good thing is the two worst joists that we have that are compromised by water are the ones that we were going to get rid of anyways. But as you can see, these things are solid. I'm not going to mark up the whole front of the deck, but they are pretty solid. How old do you think this deck is, Robbie?
20 plus years.
See what I'm saying? You keep them decking boards off the ground and them joists off the ground, that's 20 something years. And I guarantee you, every single one of these, like look at the condition of this board right here. It's really good. I mean, I know the top that's been sun-baked a little bit has a little bit of not so, but this is very solid joists, all still the same. 20 something years in the rain. All right, one thing that we've noticed as we've gotten finished removing all the decking boards, that these joists in their current state are not attached to the band or the ledger at the house with any type of metal fastener and or hanger. So these have been completely banned in our current code, in building code in the state of Virginia. But you can see that these have not dropped not even a single eighth of an inch, and this deck is over 22 years old. So that being said, we are going to leave them in place, but we are going to reinforce all of these joists with new 2x8 joist hangers and or 90-degree Ticos, whatever the case calls for. This portion of the deck over here, you can notice that the joists have changed direction. So these are actually going side to side instead of front to back. Unfortunately, that does not work with the layout that we need with our screened porch area. So we'll be removing these joists and we are going to attach them directly to the ledger at the house and let them come frontwards. So that way, when we do finish off our screened in porch area and our extra deck area, that all of the decking boards will be running in the same direction, which we will be doing here. I'm gonna redo pretty much every support on this thing.
I was getting ready to say.
Yeah, every support's just gonna be brand new.
Whatever.
Yeah. Wheezy, Diamond Mouse braces. Okay, now let's just nail these tight. Now our overall dimension is the same exact thing front and back. On this deck, we have an overall dimension of 24 foot 6.5, which lends itself to be easily divisible by 8 foot, which is a nice symmetrical spacing to allow our 6x6 posts to be approximately 8 feet apart from each other. So we've broken our band at 16 feet exactly, which left us a remaining balance of 8 foot 6.5. So we'll be able to install a 6x6 directly in that corner, a 6x6 here supporting this break, half and half, so that there's not any one portion of this band that's free floating in the air, if you will. Everywhere where you see a potential break in the band, there will be direct support to the ground and or concrete block under that position. Whenever you're doing your deck, you do not want your double band, both bands, to be broken in the same place. It just creates a pivot point and a weak point in the deck structure itself. So it's always good to separate the breaks completely from point of load, which would be above our 6x6 post, and this one here above this load bearing point, which will be where our other 6x6 post. Now that's how you make it straight, baby. Woo-wee. That's what I'm talking about. Do I know what I'm talking about or do I not know what I'm talking about? Wheezy, go with me right there, La Mera Punta Va. What do you got, Freddie? 29.6. So we've made our overall dimensions in our new band boards to the desired length and width. But when we checked our square from corner to corner, we're about 5 inches out of square, which will need about a 2.5 inch adjustment, because if we move 2.5 inches this way, it'll grow this side 2.5 inches, at the same time making this side 2.5 inches shorter, which should line itself up. Irregardless of how the existing deck was built, out of square, out of plumb, whatever, our new structure has to be perfect. We have too much riding on it for us to let something be this far off at the beginning. When you're digging your holes, you want to get down to a nice, solid, compacted dirt. You don't want to have a whole bunch of loose dirt in there. Just going to really call for solid dirt. And that's going to prevent any settling of your deck. So I've got 28 3/4 to the notch. Yeah, 28 3/4 to the notch, and then make me 9 inches taller. Ahí, clavos. You have clavarlo arriba, and then nivelarlo y llenarlo con tierra. Yeah, right there. Clavarlo primero. All right, now let's get a string line on this thing. Let's get a string line on here so we can get these heights. Don't make me real tight. Cut me like a 1/16 inch, a little loose. We're gonna screw all these decking boards down in a nice, perfectly straight line. I'm gonna take some blue chalk and I'm gonna pop it right from end to end so I can get them screws looking really nice. That way when I stain this thing off, people are gonna love to have lunch and cook out on his deck. We're back on day 2. Really gonna sink our teeth into it today. We're gonna make sure all the hangers are installed. We're gonna make sure all the structural supports are bolted and properly covered up. And then from that point, I think we're screening the floor in and we might be able to start some decking today. The reason we're putting down this flat board is because this is the area where our screen porch is gonna end. And so to get that photographed or picture frame style decking board, we're gonna have a board that goes all around the perimeter. And I'd like it to come down right through the middle of this spacing right here as to allow us to butt the perpendicular board to it and have a really nice place to screw. We'll get support for our decking boards while being able to install the design that we really want. We'll run and get a couple rolls of screen and then I guess a really big bucket of screws and some drill bits.
In 800 feet, turn right toward US.
All right, let's go do some damage in Home Depot. I think we probably got to get something extra. Hey Romeo, aquí estoy en la línea con los hangers ahorita. Yo lo voy a agarrar. Of these. Actually, you know what? We're gonna get the 2.6Zs. Because that's all we really need. Plus we do have that 2x2 ledger. And you can see the cost difference right here is $186 for the 2x6 hanger and $2.40. So it's about 55-cent difference. You do that, 50 times, you can save 25 bucks. The 2x8, 2.8Zs do 2x8 and 2x10. 2x6 does 2x6 and 2x8, and so on and so forth. So they will withstand the load, or 2 50-foot rolls would suffice. So I think we'll get, this is a 48-inch by 100-foot roll. We can use this for now, but we're gonna have to get another one for sure. 25-foot does us no good. I think we get 100-foot, pick out some type of nice screen door. That looks like a good screen door. Really open, really loose. But I do like that you can change the, oh, it's just completely out of the rubber grommet. Okay. The 1 gallon of trim, that should do both the kitchen and the new addition part. The semi-gloss, you only need one of those. I got enough screen to do the bottom portion and some of the sides. We'll have to get some more later on. But for now, it's exactly what we needed. So we got a nice 100-foot by 4-foot roll of nylon screen here. and a 25-pound box of 1,800 deck screws. Hopefully that'll be enough. I think we should have a good bit left over. All right, so we're gonna put this one flat. Wheezy pig army right here. All right. Ooh, that was my place, please. I think we're gonna take a little time and, like I touched on earlier, hangers, posts, and bolts, really make sure this foundation is strong, and also to kind of get the majority of that done before the decking boards go on, as it has a great, space and opportunity right now to reach down in there, and it's really convenient to work on it right at the moment. Before we can install the decking boards onto the screen porch area, we need to screen protect the top portion of the joist. It's absolutely pointless just to do the 3 sides if you're not going to do the underneath portion, because they will sure as heck find their way right up through there. It's like they got a homing beacon on the inside of your skin or something. I know he's in there, and I'm coming in hot. Let's get you some water. I'll show you these little hot dogs. Well, they look like hot dogs. They're just dog trees, but they made them in the shape of a hot dog. But it does. It looks like a little bun in a hot dog, man. And it got my wife hook, line, and sinker. But, Cheeky's, she actually likes it. Some food she doesn't like too much. Come on, Cheeky's. Yeah, she was thirsty. I'll get a shovel, fill that in. Then we got one more post, and he's got a nice hole right there already dug. That's good. Finish up a couple hangers, baby, and we are screening this deck in. Where else in the world can you find anything that tastes better than Mountain Dew? If you go in a gas station, literally, you just look all around. You can go to Food Line if you want to. You got a little bit more options. You can go through the whole food line, and there's literally nothing in that store that tastes better than Mountain Dew. That's why she likes to come to work. Now when the decking boards go down, you can see they'll nicely press that screen to the deck joist and not let any insect penetration come in through the screen itself. Now they're just slap tackering it down with 1/2 inch by 7/16 inch staples, and literally just spreading it out, pulling it nice and tight, and tacking it right onto the joists and around the band perimeter. Very, very easy to install. And then once it is stapled down, you can come back and cut this edge real clean so it's not sticking out past the decking boards. And voila, you are bug proof. So we were about to make an error right before lunch, and I didn't happen to notice it until I got back. But if we're gonna do a solid picture frame all the way around, equally to how we set a flat piece of lumber on that far side for the deck to finish to and leave us somewhere to screw, we're gonna need something here at the beginning as well. So we literally just pulled the screen back, and now we are going to install some blocking in this side. And also, this is not perfectly straight. I wanted it straight before we close it all up. Sta prendita, Irie. And see, that'll give us somewhere to screw to here. And as we make that turn, these boards will be running this way, so they'll be screwing every 16 inches directly into the joists themselves. So small adjustment, but super necessary. So we'll get on that and on to the decking boards, baby. Yeah. If you want to, Gara la pistola. We're gonna mark 1.5 inches down because that's the exact width of our 2x10. So I have a reference point there. And we know this 2x10 is perfectly straight. So I'll nail this right in here. Then we'll go right here. Same thing. I can live with that. That's pretty straight. Yeah, I like it. All right, let's tack that screen back down and we'll be good to go. Now I think we're gonna go with a 1-inch overhang. I've seen people go with a 1/2 inch. I've seen people go with 1.5 inches. And I've seen people go flush and put a deck board around the perimeter. It's really what you like to do. We're gonna try to go with an 1-inch overhang here. I just don't know if it's gonna allow us to do that, being we have a 16.25 inch overall measurement. It really depends on what the factory 16s they sent us are. I'm gonna make some little marks right there just to make sure that the spacing on our screws is somewhat symmetrical and just not kind of all over the place. It might seem a little tedious, but I think in the overall finished product, it's really, really worth it to have it screwed down. And you want to stay about 1 inch inside from the outside of the board. And just down flush to the board. So on this 45, I like to stay about 1 inch in and about 1 inch away from that cut. And the same thing out here, I'll stay about 1 inch away from this edge here, trying to fall in the center of this 2x10 band out here. Yeah, dame una entera. Eso es medidas de esas maderas tienen que estar exact, okay, buddy? As you're doing your decking boards, you really need to make sure that the decking boards stay consistently straight as you go. These boards are different from one end to another. Even in the same board, sometimes we'll have 5.5 inches out here on the end, 5.25 even, that drastic on the other side, or vice versa. It could be the same measurement on the outside, different in the middle. For example, if you just didn't think about it at all and you just keep on going, by the time I travel over 16 feet, we could have a 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch bow in the middle or on the outside or wherever the case may be. So checking it every 1 or 2 rows, key to making sure you have some nice straight looking decking boards. Here on the very end, this section is going to be our open porch deck. So there's going to be no roof, no screen around this area. But since we've lined up our picture frame around the screen porch area, we're going to do the same here because our overall dimension is 8'5½". There's really nothing good to cut an 8'5½" piece of board out of. So if we take a perimeter board of our decking and attach it right to the deck, it just so happens to be 5.5 inches, which would leave us a net need of 8 foot exactly. And now we could get 2 of those out of our 16-foot material with absolutely 0 waste. So we're gonna install a board up here on this side, flush with our joist, kind of how we've started this piece here already. And equally as we did the other side, because we are picture framing this area of the open deck, we're gonna need a place to screw the outermost perimeter board and the board that goes on the inside and butts to it. We need an ample amount of space to put that screw in, as we don't like to screw very close to the edge. So by putting this board in place, it'll give us plenty of room to do that without having to be tight around the edges and maybe even cracking the decking board. So the original porch and step combo was really bad out of square. So we noticed it when we squared our new deck up in relation to the house. So this decking board on this side is gonna have to have about an 1.1 difference in the rip over about a 4-foot span. So we're gonna cut the outside 45-degree angle with the notch on that 1.1 difference, and let's see when we get it up there if we can stay nice and square and snug to our squared string line while also being nice and tight to the existing stairs. We don't want to cut through the decking board on the part that's visible to everybody, so we'll flip that over, extend our cut out a little bit. All right, so we'll slide this thing in here and see how it fits. Hopefully it lines up really well with our line. Oh boy, that looks good. That looks really good, as a matter of fact. We do have a couple of challenges that still stand in front of us that we're gonna have to overcome sooner than later. We have a power line that's coming from the, what's that called up there, transformer? Coming from the transformer to that side of the house, then it runs all along the entire length of the house and down to the meter base. So we're gonna have to work around it and, you know, build a temporary, well, some type of soffit system around there. Open up these gutters, fascia, this soffit metal that you'll see underneath of here has to go, and we'll have to cut that back to the house perfectly flush with the brick wall, and also to not interfere with our ceiling that we're going to be installing on the screen porch. Dejar lo que tú tienes cortado está bien. We're going to mark 4.5 instead. Yeah. Well, that worked out good. 4.5, 4.5, 4.5. That's what it goes to show you. Lining those pieces up and opening them up to keep them straight. As we got to our very, very end right there, our entire rip all the way across is exactly 4.5, which is equal and really, really nice. Golly, that pipe couldn't be in the worst place in the world. Mike Christopher called me the other day. He told me, hey Maynard. I said, what's going on, Mike? He's not much. I just want to let you know the steeple fell off the chapel. He's like, April Fools. I was like, Mike. I was like, that's not even funny.
That's a sick joke.
Yeah, I was like, that's not even funny at all. It's a clear possibility, son. So we're gonna lower this conduit pipe with the electrical wire in it. And the main power wire of the house, we're just gonna let that go down for a short period of time while we cut this soffit straight back from where our wall of our screen porch is gonna be. We'll cut that straight back, and at the same time, or right after that, we're gonna square this line up the roof and cut about 16 inches up the shingles and remove the 1/2-inch plywood as well. And we're gonna do that to expose the rafter tails so we can get them out of the way and install our double 2x10 porch beam directly at the house, attach it to the existing wall on the inside, and let it extend all the way out to the outermost beam. And at that point, once we get them installed, we'll be almost ready to take our ceiling joist measurement and our rafter measurement. So for the positioning of our 4x4 posts, we have a little bit of overhang on the decking board that hangs past the band. But when you line up your 4x4s, we want them to sit directly over our double 2x10 bands so that they'll give the the post and roof above support directly to what's having strength, which is the 2x10 band. So we are going to mark our overhang on both sides so we know exactly where to position our 4x4. And once I have this tacked down here at the bottom, we're going to level this off with 2 braces in contrary directions, so that way it will not move by the time we set our 2x10 above on top of it, and we can be sure that nothing's going to fall down or wiggle or change position, more importantly. Actually, you know what? Yeah, let's do it on the outside that gets covered up. Beautiful, baby. Let's do the same thing over here. All right, now, oh, you know what would be a good idea probably? Put a 4x4 on that side. Mas, ahí mero, clavos. Hermosa, vato. All right, yeah, give him that 4x4. Give me that pistola, Poot. We're gonna center up this 4x4 that goes in the middle. Our overall measurement was 16 foot and a quarter inch. And that's a 3.5 inch piece of wood, so we're gonna come over 1 inch plus 3/4, 94 and 3/16. We have a little bit of a crown in this 2x10 here. Now, one thing, you can't just cut relief cuts anywhere you want to. But as I reflected on earlier, this is a shed roof. So our main support and our main weight on this building is out here on this outermost beam. Now we're gonna have a gable framed up here, which will help disperse the weight over the entire beam. So being that this board had a crown in it, I was able to cut a relief cut here, which is just a cut with about a 1/4 inch width up here down to about nothing. So that way when I pull this tight down to the post, it'll close the gap and alleviate that crown. And again, this side does not have hardly any weight on it whatsoever. But the relief cut that I made is directly centered over top of my support post that's made here in the middle. And so that will lend itself to support this half and this half without jeopardizing the integrity of our 2x10 beam. Let's get this straight. That one didn't take very well either. Let me see that ladder. Let me see that little ladder. No, yo voy a hacer algo diferente. Yo creo que me voy a tocar que sacar este poste, fíjate. Yo sé que está abajo, pero just club all like, man. Yep. All right, give me another whole one over there. So we've made a lot of progress today. Looking forward to coming back tomorrow, and we'll see how we get it going on tomorrow morning. We're back on day 3, and it's time to get this thing wrapped up. We're gonna try to build a knee wall on top of this existing brick here to help support the ceiling joist and give some center support to the rafters as well. These are very long 2x10 rafters. They span about 24 feet, which is way too long for a 2x10 joist or rafter. So we're gonna give it some support at about 16 foot, install a ledger against it for the ceiling joist, and after the ceiling joists are installed, it's off to the rafters. Once we get those rafters framed in, hopefully we can sheet that roof, plywood these gables, and it'll go a long ways to being ready to install the shingles and make this house waterproof. So let's get at it and make it happen, Captain. Look, I got one black sock and one white sock. Yeah, this is what they were wrapped together. Matters is they're clean. I'm hoping that's what matters. I'm gonna put a 4-foot 2x4 up right here on the very end and a 6.5 inch block in there representing the plumb cut on the rafter to see about where I would finish out at up here on the roof. I want to make sure that this roof is not going to finish out higher than the existing house, but I do want to maximize the amount of pitch I can get We want to make sure that we don't exceed our 24-foot rafter length. We get as much pitch as we can possibly get, and these blocks are going to show that. When I tack one over there and the 4-foot over here, we'll run a string line and we can start pulling some measurements and see about where we finish at. We got 2 doors. This is going to be one to enter from the deck, and then we're going to put one there on the outside so you can leave to the backyard. To figure out our roof pitch, there's 2 factors that are really very important in deciding, how high or how low our roof is going to be. One is we don't want our new porch roof to be higher than the existing roof, but most importantly, we have to have at least a 312 pitch on our new roof to shed that water off properly. And how you figure that, approximately, without getting an exact measurement on your rafter, is a 312 pitch climbs 3 inches for every foot in length. So we know that we have a 16-foot beam here. So if you would just multiply 3 inches times the 16-foot length, because every 1 foot we climb 3 inches. So 3 times 16 is 48 inches, which allowed me to make this 48-inch cut on the 2x4. Now the 6.5-inch block that Derek was holding out there on the outside of the beam is representing the plumb cut, or the width of our 2x10 rafter, because you can't put the string directly to the beam, because then you wouldn't be allowing for that cut, and that would drastically change the pitch if you just tried to pre-measure down to the corner of the beam where the bird's mouth sits versus the actual top side of the rafter, and let that kind of plane out, and you'll get a true reading as far as what the exact pitch is. Now we ran a string line from that 6.5-inch block and let it run beside our board here to about where our 24-foot length was. And we only came out with a 212 pitch, which is really too shallow for shingles. It could cause water to sit up there and freeze, or just sit up there and just settle on nail heads, which over time could cause leaks, and we just don't want that to happen. A lot of times when water freezes throughout the winter, when it goes to melt, it'll actually push the water up before it's allowed to run back down. It's just a natural process of thawing, which is really weird. You would think that it would just drain from the bottom, but it doesn't. It actually pushes up. So if you had a large sheet of ice on your shingles, it could technically push that up underneath that piece before it's allowed to come back down, and it might even be able to reach a dangerous point where it would be past the protected area and be able to get in behind the shingles. So it's really important that we have a decent pitch out here, and we get that water running off and no sitting on any areas throughout the new structure. Whew, that's way up the roof too. And I still got to go down another 9.5, 9.25 plus 1.5 inches. Oh my goodness. So what I'm trying to figure out with this here is just maximizing my height. Same thing we were talking about earlier. Trying to maximize my height as our rafters are going to rest on this wall. So depending on the height of the actual rafter itself, which is 2x10 in this case, which measures to 9.25 inches, plus our top plate for a grand total of 10.75. So when TJ holds the block out there and I run the string like we just did a few seconds ago, it lets me know what angle we're at, and I went about as high as I could possibly go. We may just have to put some type of flat roofing on here instead of shingles. ledges right there, boys. Now with our ceiling joists, we want them to be, there is quite a bit of span. But we're only going to be holding a vinyl soffit ceiling, so there's not going to be that much weight directly on the ceiling. So we're going to use 2x8 by 16 foot long southern yellow pine, and we're going to put those on 16 inches on center. So one thing is real important that you guys must do, and this is true with your joists, your wall studs, your ceiling joists, and your rafters especially. You really need to look down the edge of that board and mark your crown. You'll be able to see up here some examples. It doesn't matter how you mark it or what you mark it with. I think the easiest thing to do is mark an arrow. Just so you, especially if you're a beginner, because then you kind of know exactly what that means, and that means this side needs to go up. And you kind of, every board has a natural crown to it or arc, just like a rainbow. So if you turn any board up on its edge and kind of just look right down that edge, you'll be able to see a natural hump on there. And over time, that crown or hump will level out. So we put all of our crowns up, because as gravity pulls on our materials, it'll come down to a nice level place. You know, what is the standard acceptable in the area or where we work is 1/4 of an inch of crown. If you're working with material that has over 1/4 of an inch of crown, you do not need to be using that piece of wood. You can just send that back to the manufacturer, you get fully reimbursed. Also, the number one thing, I can work with some crowns, but what we cannot work with is twists. So if one board at the end is twisted this way and the other side is twisted this way, it's not gonna make for a good finish. It's gonna make it really tough on your siding contractors, on your sheetrock finishers. So if you have more than a 1/4 inch of crown, I would suggest that you send it back. So it's a good idea to kind of pick your own lumber. If you're getting lumber from a building supplier or anything like that, usually order about 10% extra of what you'll think you'll need, so you'll have a couple pieces to call through. You'll be able to send back and you won't have to go back and run it for materials. All right, I'm gonna nail that side off over there, guys, and I guess we can figure out some rafters. So I put one block down here on the bottom to make sure that our bottom's nice and straight. And I put one up here on the top so it doesn't get twisty when I pull on it, because I am gonna put a little bit of weight up there and I don't want it to get twisty on us and change my layout. So we're gonna leave 2 there for temporary until the rafters are on. I'm gonna go ahead and line a 2x4 up on top of these ceiling joists to make sure they stay perfectly straight. The beam is straight. It is now rafter time. So to check the crown, you want to stand that board up on its edge. And it may be a little hard to see, but if you can look down the edge of that board, it has a small arc to it. And that's the side that we want to go up. And when we come to this edge here, we'll just mark an arrow just like that, so we know that this side needs to go up. And we'll lay these rafters all the same direction with crowns going this one direction, so that when we mark our pattern, we won't be having to flip our pattern back and forth. We can just slide it right on over, mark our cuts, and then move on to the next one. We put our string lines up earlier with our 6.5 inch block outside. We kind of lined it up with our knee wall to kind of see where we were going to plane at and also what our pitch was going to be. And we're working with roughly a 2.5 12, which is almost 14 degrees. We're really, really close to 14 degrees. So what I did was, our rafters are extra long, a little bit more than we need, not enough to make it to the roof, but enough to make it to the knee wall. We just put a tail pattern down here, and I will slide my square to a 14-degree angle, mark down that, as we did here, all the way across the board. Now, the 2x10 rafter is about 9.25 inches long, but when you have it on an angle, we're actually a little bit longer, somewhere around 9.5 inches. So we came down approximately 7.5 inches and marked a perpendicular line to our plumb cut. And this is what we will call our bird's mouth. And this will create a little seat area where it'll lock into the beam, give us a nice place to nail to, while also allowing each rafter to hit the beam at the same exact place, at the same exact height. So we'll have one consistent measurement in height over the beam area and around our tails. Now that'll again work the same way at the top of our knee wall, as these 2x10s will rest completely on the knee wall, and we've strung lined that as well as far as height, and added a couple shim blocks to make sure that that plate was perfectly straight as well, so there's no real waves in our roof. You know, there's always going to be a little bit of inconsistency, whether it's an eighth or so, but like we said, as far as the ceiling joists, same thing with the rafters. You really do not want to have bigger than a 1/4 inch variance in anything, because it will start getting noticeable to the eye. Things don't have to be perfect to look really well, but if you get over a 1/4 inch variance, you will start to notice things, and it will not look good at the end product. So our fascia overhang we did was approximately 1 foot long. So once I had my bird's mouth, and this area here will be removed, I came over and marked 1 foot, and then from that same point, which was down here, we just put our square on the same degree as the portion above, and we slid over until we hit that mark. Once we hit that mark, we can just square that up. Now we're planning on using a 1x6 for our fascia, hence the reason we stopped at 5.5 inches. Now once we are at 5.5 inches, I will square that back over and we'll remove that as well. So when we put our 1x6 fascia on, we completely cover the rafter tail end, and it'll allow us to metal and cover up all the raw wood and not leave it exposed to the elements. So we'll make this cut here on the copy. So we'll have something to do just that, copy onto each rafter. So let's see, when we make this cut, it's really important to have your saw blades about 1/8 of an inch wide. And if, depending on which side of the line or directly in the middle of the line that you cut, you need to cut all your rafters the same way. And I like to put my blade on the outside of what's trash. So wherever my line is, I kind of want to see my blade leaving a little bit of that pencil on the board that we're going to use, so that I know that I have a true measurement. If your blade gets on the other side, you can lose up to 1/8 of an inch just that quickly. But by the time you do that onto your rafters, and if you continue that pattern over and over and over again, you could lose up to a 1/4 inch and have a big variance in your rafters. So real important to pay attention to your cuts on these rafter cuts, and leave that little bit of the pencil line so that you know you're getting a true measurement and cutting it at the same place each and every rafter. Have that saw guide directly flat onto the 2x10. You don't want to get it like this or even like that. It just creates a natural bevel that's not consistent, and another imperfection and thing that can get worse and worse and affect our overall look on the outside of the rafter tails. And cut slow. When we do any of our roof overs or frame overs onto an existing roof, I really like to remove all the shingles that are underneath my framing. It's not super necessary. You can just frame right over top of it, but with my sleeper, and it's relatively similar to a ledger board, and rafters, I'd like to have those as close to wood on wood contact as possible. So I pulled a measurement down here at the bottom, which is 19.25 feet. It's exactly flush with the end of my framing and my gable wall, with about a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch of play there, so that the roofers can come in and install the proper step flashing. So I'm going to go up at the top and mark that same exact number, set a nail down here at the bottom, hook my string line on that, and pop a line straight up the roof so that I can ensure that we have a nice straight square gable end here. And we're going to pull the overall measurement from this line once this line is popped, and we'll know exactly where the shingles are that need to be removed, and it will create a nice line for the roofer who, if had to cut it later, would probably have to work twice as hard to get that done. So we're gonna pull that straight up here, and we're gonna check this for square after we get both sides marked. If there's any adjustment that needs to be made, I'll do it now. One thing you can't do is rely on other framing in other building to be perfectly square. We noticed down here on the lower portion of the deck that even the porch stoop was out about an inch out of square and only 4 feet. So we'll pop our lines with our parallel dimensions, the same exact length, and then we'll pick a point and we'll check that square to see if we need to adjust it side to side. We're gonna start our layout from the same side that we started our joist layout. We use the number 15 1/4 set ahead on the joist. So on the rafters, we're gonna do 15 1/4 set back so that our rafter can sit directly on the beam and not interfere with the joist itself, and at the same time be right up against it so we can actually nail the rafter to the joist and create a strong connection point and obtain maximum amount of strength against storms and high wind. So we're gonna lay this out completely on a 16-inch on center layout all the way across so we know exactly where our rafters are gonna sit. So while we are passing the rafters up, we will not have to pull our tape measure out and be fighting with layout. We'll be able to concentrate on properly nailing the rafters themselves and just make it a little easier while we have something heavy, the rafter and the framing gun, in our hands. So our 24-foot rafters wouldn't quite make what I wanted to get out of our pitch. So you guys saw us build our knee wall here in the middle, and now we've continued this gable end up here and nailed it right down to the roof. And this is made with about a 76-degree pitch. And we got that by putting the string on our 6.5-inch block, putting the string up here where it planed out, and literally putting our square on the roof, and where the string crossed is what our angle was. Now, the two gable ends, I've allowed them to nail directly to the roof. But in between that space, we're gonna put this 2x10 ledger up here so that the rafters will actually rest on that ledger and grab bearing from multiple joists at the same time, instead of having all of the pressure in one area that may or may not be directly in line with the rafters or trusses below. So this 2x10 sleeper will help transfer and distribute that weight in between the layouts of the roof below. Now you can see with this extraordinarily long cut, we will also need to put another sleeper down here towards the bottom edge of the cut, and we will do that in the form of two 2x4s or a 2x8. But they can get, you know, some of this installed beforehand. You can see Freddie now is working his 16-inch layout. He's running that across there, and he doesn't need any explanation for that. He's got that pretty much well under control. That looks good, buddy. That looks good right there. So you might notice that the 2x10s here past the knee wall are at different lengths. And we've done that because they move the pattern in the copying board up and down to avoid bad areas of the raw wood that we had cutting the joist out of, or rafters, if you will. It does not matter the length of the overhang there. Ideally, the less overhang that you have in these situations is better. You typically want only about a 12 or 14-inch overhang of your wood past the knee wall. But 2 foot happens all the time. We do 2 foot counterlevers all the time. Just the rule is whatever distance sticks past your wall, you need to be double that distance back supported. So if we have 3 foot overhang, this portion here would need to be at least 6 foot long, which we're well above that. If this was a floor joist system, I would cut those off completely because we would want to avoid squeaks, but being that nobody's going to be walking on here, it'll be just fine. We're going to sister right beside them and nail both of them together. We're going to install hurricane clips here below to tie the rafters to the knee wall, and then the gables also nailed directly to the porch beam to create everything in a locking, nailed in tight pattern. Once this roof is plywooded, we can literally remove all the braces from the outside. Good thing is we got shingles coming in tomorrow. We got roofing paper getting in here today to get this thing watertight. Tomorrow the shingles get installed, and hopefully in the next couple days we'll get the porch stained, or at least on the exterior side, which is hidden by the screen portion. That way we can let it dry and cure for a couple days and then come back and install the screen. At that point, we're going to leave it open for a little while because our buddy here is an electrician and he's going to do all the wiring on this building himself. And once he gets done with getting the wiring done, we're going to be able to come in and install the vinyl siding on the inside of the unit. But we're getting close, boys. We've really made it through this deck install. There are a lot of different ways that you can do your handrails. Today, we're going to be working with a very simple system. Just 2x4 railings and plates along with 2x2 pickets. Relatively simple, easy to follow. So when we start to install, make sure you follow a couple steps because you can use this same method on your exterior deck or screen porch, either or. Simple to build. Let's just do it 3 inches. Give me one and you take 2 and put it over there. I'll do that, even though it's a little higher than I'm normally. I usually like to come off the ground 4 inches, but we got this flat one across the bottom that'll still keep our spacing fine. So this one goes right here. Let's just get the prettiest side on the inside, which is this. Right there, buddy. Give me my next 2, pimpin'. And I'm probably gonna screw a bunch of this off. Go right there, right on top. Just a simple rail system. Now we went 36 inches from the floor to the top of the vertically installed 2x4, and then after that we just placed another one on top. Now you're more than welcome to use a 1x6 here, and we may even end up still doing that later on. But for now, we just like to use the same size board that matches up with exactly the width of our post. And that's just to not create any weird edges or anything like that. And we're just going to tack this because I want to use some screws on for the most part. 5/16 up top, so we can start at the bottom. And we're going to do the same exact thing as we started with on the other side. Now this bottom board, its main purpose is a place to start the screen. So we're going to install this board directly to the subfloor. This board here will actually have the screen applied to it from the outside and be a place where our base and cap system for the screen can be screwed down. So we're just toe-nailing it directly into our 4x4 post. And we're cutting these kind of tight because this wood, even though it is a #1 grade and it has been dried, it still will get a little teeny bit smaller through the drying out process. I do not like those stickers at all. I'll tell you what, I'll be glad when Wawa gets their grilled chicken back. I can't eat my grilled chicken salad. Golly, man, that grilled chicken salad is so good. And see, Wawa, I said, well, I noticed there was no grilled chicken. I was like, guys, how are you gonna sell lunch if you don't have grilled chicken? I was like, I'm not putting fried chicken on my salad. Like, I can't even think of a sauce that would go good with it besides ranch. And I just didn't want, I really wanted balsamic vinaigrette. And I was just like, well, he's like, you know, they're gonna bring it back and very, very soon. So it was all good. Couple weeks go by, boom, grilled chicken's back. And I'm like, all right, cool. Give me another salad. Next week, grilled chicken's gone. And I'm like, guys, what happened to the grilled chicken? He was like, yeah, there was metal in the original. They found metals in the chicken, and they tried to bring it back, but then they discontinued it again, I think for the same reason. So I done ate it again. We're gonna router some of these edges up, and we'll do that down the handrails, down the stairs as well, just to give a nice little finish with the router later on, and clean these up and then just stain them. Now, one key factor, guys, I know a lot of us try to do wood protection and stain, is you got to let the wood dry out properly before you apply the stain. Now, on this screen porch area, we are gonna actually be installing the stain on the outer portion where the screen goes, while leaving the inside open for the time being, so it'll be able to dry out thoroughly, and we'll come back in about a month or two and actually apply the stain in 2 coats. I think it's too tight when you have to dramatically beat the wood into place. If you can get a little light tap and get it to go in there, that's fine. But if you're literally just giving it a good whack or two, that's probably too tight. And especially if you're using this waffle hammer out, where, like I said, this deck is a finished product, so what you see is what's going to be visible to everybody. And I don't want to put a whole bunch of waffle head marks into my wood. It's better just, we're going to trim that thing up a 16th, see if it does a little bit better. What we're going to do here at the top is basically make something that looks like a little baby window. So we're going to put a little stud on each side. Then we're going to find our exact center, plop that up there, tack it off nice, so. All right, so there you go. This is called just a basic little window frame. It kind of makes you look like you have a window in here, even though it's really not. It's just a board we add to the top that gives the screen a place to contact here and here, to not have to span all the way down from the floor all the way up to the ceiling. Now, you're more than welcome to do that, but I tend to find that with the smaller sections, the tighter the screen stays. So, especially if you're using nylon. If you're using nylon screen and you try to travel over an 8-foot span, it has, you know, you can literally push that screen far out before this gets too tight and doesn't go out any further. With these tighter sections, you can get that screen looking really, really, really nice. We ought to get up and have a good fishing trip one day. We need a weekend where it's just guy weekend.
This weekend it's probably gonna rain.
No, it can't be this weekend. I need to be after baseball season. I want to go out on a Saturday so that we're out during Saturday and we fish into Saturday night. Eating out there, maybe we don't even take no food. Maybe we just catch fish and eat it. Yeah, we can take some snacks or whatever. To frame in the screen door, we're going to essentially make a very similar piece to what we did over the window areas. Our doors come naturally, or not naturally. Most doors on average are made at 80 inches, which is 6'8". Even your door slabs on your interior doors and your exterior doors, the actual slab of the door is 6'8". Just a standard measurement so people can make and produce accessories for whatever style door. So I will give myself a little bit of play, about 80 1/4, 80 3/8, and I'll frame my portion down to that height. And once we install the hinges, which on this screen door we'll be doing spring-loaded hinges with an interior spring as well, just to give us some good closing power. And we'll frame our chicken ladder or window framing down to about 3/8 of an inch from the top of the door so that we can pick the door up a little bit off of the ground so it'll swing freely. And then once the door is closed perfectly flush, I'll mark the inside of the frame and we'll install what they call a door stop. And you can make that out of pretty much any piece of wood that you have available. We're probably going to use some extra leftover decking boards. And we'll just install those there and tack those in with a trim nailer, trim gun, or screws, whatever you have available. And the door will close against that stop with the spring-loaded hinges and keep a nice tight seal there not to let any bugs in. When you're looking for layout on your 2x2 pickets, measure the distance of the area that you're covering. In this case right here, we have 74 and 5/8. 37 and 5/16 will be our center. So you run right there, mark 37 and 5/16, just a small little mark. Remember that this is finished. And once we get our center, we'll slide over about 3/4 of an inch. And the reason we're doing 3/4 is because our pickets are exactly 1.5 inches wide. So from the center, if the very first picket will be perfectly centered, we'll need to mark 3/4 of an inch to see the edge. And once we have that mark, we'll place a small X forward so the guys know which direction to go. Now, once we have that center picket installed, we're simply going to put a 2x4 spacer nice and tight to that 2x2 and install the next 2x2 directly tight to that 2x4 as well. And then after that, remove the 2x4, place it against that 2x2, and that process continues until you have less than 4 inches to the end of your post. Now you can put these pickets on with screws or nails. Just screws tend to work so much better. And I like screws because you only have to put one of them into the picket on the upper side and one on the lower side. Here, Poop, get this ahead of me. Here, get it right there and I'll screw. Yeah, and when you put 2 nails, a lot of times these small pickets tend to split. Yeah, just take a 2x4 in there, so that way we can guarantee that our spacing is not bigger than 4 inches, which is our current building code that we're in. Now for each 6-foot section of rail, you have approximately 13 to 15 pickets. And on 8-foot sections, you have about 18 to 20. So that'll give us a good idea of how many to order with the deck package. And I also do not flush my pickets up to the bottom of the 2x4. And I do that so that if there is any inconsistency, whether it be 1/8 or whatnot, it'll be lost in the overhang. Whereas if you cut it perfectly flush with the edge of the 2x4 itself, and if there was any variance, this eliminates all of that from being an issue. All right, on the very end here, if we did not put a picket, we would have a space greater than 4 inches. So we're going to install a picket right here against the rail. And although we can't keep our 3.5 inch spacing, we're about 3 and 5/8. That's pretty decent to be the same as everywhere else. But if we didn't put anything there, we would be more than 4 inches and would not pass code in our area. It was a good day, great temperature. I wish this would stay this way all year long. We made some good progress today. Make sure you guys pay attention to that rail system. It's, like I said, it's not the most cosmetically beautiful, but it's very, very efficient dollar-wise, and stained up and screened up. It looks really, really nice. We'll come back at you tomorrow. See you later. We're back on day 4 of the screen porch makeover. Now the guys got here early this morning and they've been rocking and rolling ever since they got here. So let's just go ahead and jump in and get this thing started. The homeowner was just tired of looking at the old semi-bead horizontally installed vinyl siding. So we decided to change these two ends to look exactly like what we're gonna do on the new porch back there, which is a straight up vertically installed board and batten vinyl siding. It's really sharp looking. So a lot of these braces that are installed perpendicular to the structure, I'll be able to remove because the plywood's holding that action now. And then that will allow us to use that same material to frame our false soffit underneath of there and hide that power wire so it does not become an eyesore. The rest of these braces up here, we'll leave that in. And I mean, honestly, then at that point, we're pretty much ready for the electrician to come in and wire. So hopefully we can get it all done, and when he comes home, it's just completely done and he has something new to look at. Advancing this thing as far as humanly possible today is the best idea, really. Let's see if we can cut the stair pattern and go from there. Try come to the squadrelli, Tabo. This is always a good idea whenever you're doing your stair measurements. A lot of times people will measure right here at the edge of the deck and say, oh, well, I've got 32 and a half or 32 and a half inches. But a lot can happen in the ground over the distance of where the steps are actually gonna land. So it's really nice to put a leveled board approximately the distance of where your steps are gonna end so you can get a true reading on your tape measure. And you can see there, we're about 33 and a quarter. You can see there we have about 30 and 3/4. So there's about a 3-inch difference fall just in that 3-foot span. So it's really important to measure where they're actually gonna finish and not right up against the deck. We'll see if we can make our own frame and square, which is not ideal. It will turn out just fine, but we really have to take our time cutting this piece of plywood and the stairs. We've marked our 6 9/16 for the rise, our 10 3/4, or 10 1/4 for the run. So we will simply just trace this factory edge of our plywood to create our stair pattern. Now, this is not ideal. I recommend not doing this if this is your first time. It's much better to use the frame and square, especially being that they provide those lock-in mechanisms to get a really true measurement, but we should be a-okay with this. Now, our total amount of steps are 5 steps, but the deck itself is gonna be the 5th and final step. So we're gonna do four stairs here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're gonna apply a 1x8 kicker board in the front. So on the back side of this very first stair, we're gonna remove the exact width of what our kicker board is so that the stairs will stay the same measurement. If you do not remove the difference in the kicker, then when you put your decking boards on the top, they will have no overhang that will match the rest of the stairs. So always, whatever you put in front of the stair, you need to subtract that from the very first riser, and then your steps will all work out to be the same exact measurement. All right, so there is our stair pattern, and we will mark 4 more of these. When you do your rafter patterns and or stair patterns, you want to copy only one board to do all of that work. So whatever your original first copy is that you cut of either your rafter or your stairs, that will create some consistency between the stairs themselves. What we're going to be doing here is we're going to be providing some back support for the stringers. And we're just going to attach these back boards behind the double band board that was on the deck and let them hang a little past to support our header that's going to help support the stairs. And we'll tack that for now with the framing gun, and then later we will screw that off These will sit here just like so. Now, we're not gonna attach them just yet because we're gonna dig our holes. And I wanna make sure that I'm relatively square to the deck. This side. Let's go right here. We're gonna drop this down to our riser height because we've marked here the same exact distance of our risers that we cut into the 2x12s. So we're gonna line that right up on our line, right flush to the outside, and nail it right there. Support that right there. Right here. So we have roughly a 4-foot opening, and I was going to put these about 12 inches on center, but I think we're going to have actually a little closer to 16 inches on center, which is fine as long as you're not working with composite decking. We'll make sure that we're still nice and square. Oh yes, that looks really good right there. We're nice and tight to the back deck. So we're getting really close to getting these steps in their final location. And you can see we're really close to the ground level where we pulled our measurement from originally. And we're gonna check the level of the steps first, then we'll level this post in both directions before we completely attach it to the stringer at that point and be able to do our backfill. And once we get this one side complete, we'll do the same thing, rinse and repeat on the other side. Okay, I'll hold it level and you knock it out. That's really good. These riser boards though, whoa, we gotta rip them. I didn't think about that, Mr. Hughes. It's only 6 9/16. All right, so our bolt is at the most inconvenient of heights. It's not the right size drill bit, but we're gonna try to countersink that thing anyway. All right, Tavo, regular size, my little buddy. See how close we are there. Oh, that's a lot closer. Once he tightens that down, we are gonna be good, baby. All right. So we're getting really close at the end of the steps here. We're gonna cut this final stair tread to notch around these 4x4s, and then I'm gonna pull a measurement and whack these off at the height of what the rest of our posts are gonna be on the existing porch. We've got the stairs in a good position for the moment. We're obviously not gonna put the rails on there now, because I would like to screen it first so that I can attach the rails directly through the screen portion, and that'll have to wait till after the staining. So we're just gonna go ahead and jump right now to the vinyl rails on the open deck area. And if I get the rails done, we are gonna be pretty much there, which is not bad. I can't remember if this is day 4 or day 5, but either way, we're making good progress, no matter which day it is. Obviously, it'd be better for me if it was day 4. And these are some surface mounted posts from Fibron, which I have never used this particular brand. All pretty similar, just wanna make sure. Oh, look, and they come with their own screws. That never happens. Wow, that's interesting. These are the leveling wedges right here. Assuming these are the washers for these bigger bolts if you wanna go all the way through. These bolts here, I do not know if these are galvanized. And if I can't confirm that they are covered with zinc, then I may just use the extra ones that I bought. And we are going to screw this one down right over here. And we are going to apply one of these ledger locks to each corner. All right, we're not going to tighten them all the way down yet because we don't want to make the deck unlevel, and I am going to go caddy cornered first. We're gonna add some blocking underneath the decking board because where this screw goes in with the holes provided in the surface mounted post does not have anything below this decking board. It's a little bit past where the band board is. If this coarse thread goes all the way past the decking board, we're essentially not grabbing anything in this area. So we're gonna install a block right where those holes are so that when we do insert the lag screw, it will be grabbing solid wood all the way down where the threads are and really hold that surface mounted post tightly to the decking board. Oh, that thing tightened on down. 1/4 inch and lift. There we go. That will work. Just like so. And that shim can stay underneath of there. And once we put the post sleeve cover on, it'll all be covered up, nice and level, and that's a great place to be. So for this outer section here, what our goal is to make it all the way to where this inside post is. So we're gonna line up a post on our deck that is in line with our post and this post, so we can create a rail section right here if it's necessary. It may not even be necessary. And then continue ours on it, so at least they'll line up with something symmetrically. Oh, that is nice. It will. It's really good. You don't want to just keep over tightening when you're at the end of the pole, because all you're doing is just tearing up the meat of the wood that you're actually trying to use to help hold you in there. And slide it up and down, and you can literally screw it at whatever height you need. So no matter what type of rail system you're using, you can literally use these surface mount posts for any brand. Really, really cool. I like to keep a good measurement similar to what he already has. 40 inches, that's a really good number. We're gonna cut these 40 inches because with the vinyl rails, it's a really nice measurement that allow you to have your ring on the bottom, your rail section with their standard heights that they come, which is roughly around 36 inches, and it'll leave you enough room above the horizontal top rail to fit a New England cap on top, because they overlap about 1.25 inches, and you won't butt into the rail. It'll leave a little bit of reveal there in between the top cap and the rail and create a nice little finish. So 40 is a good number for your vinyl wrap post. Whew, I am just about a 1/16 of an inch from making this cap go down. Holy cow. Jiminy crickets, Jeffrey Bodine. Ooh. God, that thing almost whooped my butt. I tell you what, this is the most difficult set of rails we could have possibly bought. And I think it's probably why we were the only thing left at the store, because nobody wanted to buy these sons of a bitches. This thing can't spin, can't get out of whack. And then it's gonna be aggravating, but maybe once we figure out the first one, I'm gonna sit here and struggle with this, and I've already reamed out the first screw and it didn't even get started. It's just they're cheap ass screws, and this is a very hard plastic on the inside of this thing. That's $1,500. Of crap that don't even work. But you mixed the whole order is just completely mixed up. Even the packages of extra brackets that you bought, they're even different from each other. They're not even the same as each other. I almost want to take all this back and just get my money back, dude. Put it back in the back of my truck. I'm not using any of it, all of it. So Derek's been making pretty good progress here on the roof. Now for the two edges, we decided to hang our shingles over 3.5 inches. And that's because on the side of the rake metal, we're gonna pad the gable out with a 3/4 inch by 3 inch piece of 1x. And then on top of that, a 1x6 to kind of create a cavity for our vinyl siding to go up into. Now, once that's all installed, we're gonna put a piece of PVC aluminum trim coil on the top of that 1x6 with a 3/4 bend. So if you add that 3/4, so we have 3/4 inch pad out plus our 3/4 inch 1x6 fascia and our 3/4 inch reveal of our aluminum PVC trim coil, which totals 2 inches and a quarter. Now we want to have about 1 inch overhang with our shingles, so with 3.5, we'll roughly be about 1 1/4 inches outside of our finished siding product. It's looking really nice and straight. His rows look really good. Now Derek is a full-on roofing professional, albeit shingles are not very difficult. And if you want a step-by-step guide, you guys just check that shingle video out in this Build Your Own Shed series, and you'll get a step-by-step explanation of how to install shingles on your new shed, roof, or garage. We're gonna frame this soffit out here to hide this existing power wire. I'm just gonna go straight up, pick the wire up on top of it. There you go. Come down a little bit. We're gonna match right up to that 2x4 right there. Oh. Well, let's call it a day, boys. That's gonna be a wrap for day 4, Nathan? Is it day 4, day 5, day 3?
Decided it was 4 this morning.
There's a wrap for day 3, 4, or 5. We'll see you guys again tomorrow. All right, guys, here we are on day 5. We're gonna see if we can get these rails sanded down, apply 2 coats of stain to the areas that are gonna be covered by the screen, make a good advancement on the siding on the ends of the new structure, finish off the shingles, and if we have time, let's get these new vinyl rails in. So let's just jump right into it and get this thing going. The point we're trying to reach with the stain is to properly get as much of the rails covered as we can, so that way the staining is at a minimal after the screen is installed. We obviously don't want a bunch of stain over the screen, because it will, with those small holes, kind of fill and just attach itself. It actually dry just right there on the nylon screen. So we'll do this about 2 times, and after this is cured completely, then we'll do a once over check over and make sure that everything's good. We're gonna have to get a list of materials together. We're gonna pick up some board and batten siding, some aluminum trim coil, some 1x6s for the fascias and soffits, and some center vent soffit on the outside to match the rest of the existing home. So we've got a few things to get. We'll make a list right now, and they can bring us that along with the brake. That will be a big help in bending the metal that we need around the outside, so we can see if we can make this thing waterproof before the storm comes in tomorrow. This is our Tapco Pro 19, 10-foot metal bender, and it does good with thinner metals, stuff up to about 24, 26 gauge metal. If you look right here on the brake itself, there's about 5 examples of different types of fascias and coverings that we do. Real cool machine. It bends metal nice and clean. You can do 90-degree angles. You can do 45-degree angles, pretty much anything from 0 to 90. How it all goes down. That's some J channel. Go get our 1x6. We're pretty much ready to rock and roll. Pass this over about 2 or 3 times to actually cut the metal. So that actually cuts it. That smooth coil metal just scratches really easy. But I just used that just because that's what he had on the rest of the house. You like that? Good right there? So that should butt up against the shingles. See what I'm saying? Yeah. One thing you gotta look out for when you bend metal If you can kind of look down this edge here, I don't know how well you can see it or not, but you'll notice that here on this end, it's almost perfectly 90 degrees square up. But then as you get to the center, it's kind of leaning out a little bit. And then as you work yourself back towards this side, it's perfectly square again. So the brake is not bending the metal to the same exact position along the entire 10-foot span. So what we have to do is we have to bend that middle until the furthest most point is at 90 degrees, which is our center section right here, which we're finally at 90 degrees, but it's bent the ends a little too far in. So we just take our hand and rub this right here, nice and slow, work it out until it's back about 90 degrees. Same thing on this side here. So every brake has its own little area where it might be a little tighter versus not so tight. So you just got to make sure that furthest point is bent to a good 90 degree, and then press the other sides out to get them back to where it needs to be. This is a really cool part about the bend here, because we have our 45-degree bend that you can kind of see where it's coming down here. So now when we put the counter bend back at 45 degrees, I'll come right on up. And when it finishes out, to know that you're in a good spot, it's just exactly flat. So if this piece here is sitting relatively flat with our table, then we've countered it back just far enough to be perfectly perpendicular with our fascia boards. Once we put the soffit up there, this will finish off just like this. Nice and neat, just like that. You see what I mean? It's a little thick on that side over there. Well, once I nail that in, it'll look right nice. So we have a double bend that you'll notice that we were doing on the brake over there. And the reason we do that is, if we create a double bend, it really helps this sheet of metal from becoming wavy. If we just, for example, just ran a straight piece, this metal would, you know, with the heat and the cooling down process every single day, would become extremely wavy. And this just creates a little bit of resistance and a pattern for the metal to follow that will prevent that from happening. So we have a nice straight finish with no buckles. And also these nail heads on these lower portions that are going to be exposed, we don't hammer those all the way in. We leave the head just a little bit out and allow that metal to expand and contract, and it'll create that nice finish. Now these nails up here at the upper portion will be covered up from the J channel on the side, and that goes above. But we're going to put these pieces on here first. And again, you can see this little gap, being it has that bend on there, it's actually not touching the wood. So we're just going to tighten that up to it and let that be exposed just like that. And that looks really, really good. Whoever thought about green snips, red snips, and yellow snips, they made a killing. They don't have to work for the rest of their life. The green ones are for cutting from the left-hand side. The red ones are for cutting from the right-hand side. So there's one straight edge, and there's a little extra. This blade's so wide by the time you get in there. So the greens are good for cutting from left to right. The reds are good from cutting from right to left, and the yellow ones cut perfectly straight lines. Yes! Is that so gorgeous, or is that so gorgeous? Oh, that lip just goes right in there. Water's gonna run right out into the channel and just away from the house. Oh, that's so nice. So you can see here that I cut a little angle here, but I did not remove the lower lip. Instead of removing the lip, we bend that down, and when I install it into this J channel here, it will let me lock in, and that lip will kind of grab onto the other J channel there, if you will, and let that water come right down the J channel and off that tongue and right into the other J channel, which drains right out of the roof. Stain looks semi-decent on one coat, but it just needs to be a little thicker. That pressure-treated lumber just isn't really receptive until it dries out a little bit. You just cannot lock it in right now. It's just got too much chemical in it. It's not gonna receive. But if we let it sit for about 3 to 4 weeks, in about 3 to 4 weeks, it'll start to get a gray patina on the outside of it. And that's when you know it's ready for stain. All right, they're gonna start some vinyl siding, and I'm gonna finish up the fronts up here. So we kind of just put a little cut right here. We left this as one piece here in the corner. Just cut a straight cut, and then on one side of it, you cut a 45 and a relief cut on the back side of the J-channel, and you can just bend it around, and it makes a perfect little 45 cut and grabs onto itself, lets us tack it into this outside edge right here, and then we will simply just slide the soffits inside here and tack them to the underneath side of the 1x6 fascia. After that, they kind of just sit in here on this side, and we will wrap our metal to come around and encase the soffit, which will help give that protection against the wind. So we're just gonna slide it right here into this channel, slide it back all the way into the starting point of the other J channel that we put on, and we simply just raise this up here and tack it off with the same nails that we're using on the white soffit. And that is literally it. You can put 2 in each one. Doesn't necessarily need that, but it does not hurt. Don't even set that nail all the way, it's not necessary. And this is a really cool thing about the side. You slide that right in, hook right onto the next piece, and then you're off to the races. You're doing the same thing again. Just really want to make sure that this fascia, or this soffit rather, does not stick out past this fascia board. It will create some wrinkles and some bubbles in your fascia metal. So it's always better to be in 1/8 or 1/4 of an inch, especially being that we have that 1 inch bend down here in the bottom. It'll easily cover that up. So it's like I said, it's a lot better to be 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 inch in than even a 1/16 out. We got a little cool thing we do here. And behind this 1x6, you can kind of see that we have a nice gap right here. And that's because behind this 1x6, we install a rip that's about 2.5 inches. And I do that so it'll create a cavity, and our actual siding install can go all the way up in there until it reaches that other board underneath. And it doesn't create a need for caulking or a J-channel. A lot of times you'll see people do remodels or siding after the house is built and whatnot, and they don't do any fascia work, and they'll just butt some siding on it and it'll call it brand new. Well, the problem with that is when you have this fascia, if you would kind of imagine this fascia just stuck right to this plywood, well then we would have a J-channel right under there, and the actual water could come down and kind of go right in that crack. As soon as the caulking, and believe it or not, a lot of times I've seen they just simply don't caulk it at all. Albeit not a drastic amount of water gets in there, but water does get in there over time, over and over and over again. And the longer it lasts, or the longer it happens, the worse it gets. So to avoid that completely, I create this gap here so that way by the time the siding goes all the way up and the PVC metal goes on the outside here, when the rain comes down, it completely falls off the metal, goes over top of the siding, which is over top of this metal, and out to where it's supposed to go. We're not dependent on J-channel, we're not dependent on caulking, and we're 100% waterproof. And that is a good way to do your siding. Well, how in the Sam Hill do we get it in there? That ain't how it goes.
What's the other side?
Let's just do some cuts real quick.
Sure, you want to do some cuts first?
Yeah. Let's make it difficult. There's so many different rail styles now, and they all have their own patents on the connectors and stuff that they have to find new ways to do things so that they're not, I guess, breaching the copyrights that other people have on their stuff. You can screw these bottom two, but you can't screw the top two.
Well, maybe you don't need to.
I guess it's universal so you can flip it over. We really need a center support. Even though it's got that aluminum backer in there, it could get a little droopy on us. You know, once we get one of these rail sections done, because it's an adjustment process every time you get a new brand of railing from somewhere. Once we get through one set, the next few following after that should be a lot easier to install. We'll figure out all the quirks and the whatever you want to call them between these next two pieces, and then we should be good to go after that. Let's see what we have here. Oh, and now my metal can't move. All right. Now let's see how this goes. I guess that's going to predetermine our measurement down at the bottom, so we don't have to worry about that. We can just slide the ends in, Chip. You got the ends already?
Yeah, I got everything right here. Cool. She's got to go on first.
Oh boy.
I'm about to,
Yeah, you about to screw us up. Oh my God, we got to take the whole thing out. You like how I say you're about to screw us up. All right, let's go right there. All right, all right.
got to lock her in just a little bit.
Oh, that's all right, bud. I can live with that. I can live with that. Let's go. Time to get on your horse, bud. Hold it, just hold it down, Chip. Let him keep going.
I've been holding it down my whole life.
That's right. All right. I like that. We got one more day left, hopefully. We've got a lot of loose ends to tighten up, but I think it's about one more day. It's Friday. We're ready to go. We'll catch you guys later on the next one. Have a good day. It's gonna be a good day. Day 6 of finishing the screen porch renovation. We've got a lot of loose ends. We got some soffit work, we got some rail work, we got some staining to do, we've got some metal work to complete the siding, and then we have a lot of screen and screen doors installations. But for today, our goal is to wrap up the exterior portion of the screen porch and deck. The most important part about your rails, especially working with vinyl rails, but this actually goes for all railing systems, is you want to make sure that you have the same distance from the end of the last picket to the post on the bottom side, as well as from the top of the last picket to this post. So you really need to measure horizontally this way and kind of look at it with your eye or a speed square, whatever makes it easier for you. But our number was 2 7/8. So once we line that up and we get the bottom supporting rail in position of where the height that we want it, and we have our even dimension on both sides from the outer picket to the post, we will mark that mark there, and that will ensure that we have the same finish out on this side as we do at the top. That goes for level railings and for stair railings. Stair railings just have an extra degree of difficulty because you're holding it on an angle, but while you're installing your level rails, you also want to have the same dimension. We've got 3 5/8 on that side, and we have about 3 3/4 on this side, 3 11/16. So within a 1/16 of being the same difference here. If you kind of could imagine, if you had this picket about 1 inch away from the post here, and that one was about 4 1/2 inches away, well, not only do you have more than 4 inches on your spacing, which does not pass code, but you have a massive difference. And so you can't just open these rail packs and just pull one side or from one side and just mark what the cutoff is. You really need to think about where the bracket is, the distance between the pickets on both ends, so that way the rails look centered and symmetrical. This is the hardest, most detailed, intricate part of the job that we have left. Really, really not easy to do these angled rails. We were lucky enough that our rails are the same exact measurement on both sides. So we're gonna line these center holes. Well, that is a miracle. Golly, we did it right away. We're gonna push this metal out that way. Make sure we make them straight, nice and straight mark there. Using the same rail that we marked with the other one so that we're not transferring a mark to a new one, then using that one for a copy. We'll go ahead and slide these pickets in here. I need 3 more. I'm probably gonna need some help because these things want to keep falling. All right, slide that on down. Oh, it's gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. I'm liking that those rails are up, boys. I'm liking those rails are up. We are going to create a door stop for the inside of the screen door. So that the screen door actually fits really close to our hole that we have here now. So we're going to install a strip of wood on the two sides and the top, so that way when the door closes, it's pressed up against that door stop and it won't allow any bugs to come through. We're going to mark about 3 locations, 1 1/8 deep, just so when it opens and closes, as that measurement grows and contracts, it won't be hitting on the door and prohibiting it from closing all the way tight. So we're going to make the door stop out of decking board, because this is a nice clean piece of wood, and we're going to rip that. I think I almost want to do like 2 inches. It's not a good idea to use a string line and just mark the ends when we want to make our 2 1/4 inch rip, because if there is a crown in the board and you pop a straight line, in the middle of the board will actually be a different dimension than what you're trying to get to. So I like to take there's a ruler or tape measure on the front of our skill saw, and I make sure that my deck is flat onto the decking board. The deck of the saw stays nice and flat, and I can hold my finger and move very slowly and keep that tape measure on 2 1/4, and I know that my rip is going to follow the contour of the board, and the whole entire board is going to be a true 2 1/4 width. So we're going to install the ripped edge, or the cut edge if you will, right against where the door is going to close. And I want to leave a little bit of a gap. I got a mark right here to judge by. So we're going to tack that off with the trim gun, and then we're going to come back and put some screws in there. I'm going to tighten that up there. We got a good 1/8 in between our mark there. Good. Tack this up. They're pretty much working out to be flush with the outside of the post. Really nice. Now that we're bending these pieces of metal, we're going to make a few adjustments and bend all that we need to do while I'm gone. And Romeo's going to work with the cap and base screening system. Now we got this from our Home Depot. It's just a black base that gets screwed directly to the wood. And once the screen is applied, we will attach the white cap that goes over top of it, finishing the product off and tying in rail with the rest of the deck. The important thing we need to watch out for: every single hole that is perforated into the plastic needs to be screwed down. There's a lot of pressure with that screen and the spline that goes in there holding the screen in. So if you do not screw every single hole, and if you skip one, it will tell on you. Once that pressure is applied from the screen, it'll completely buckle the plastic and not stay true and flat. So take our time with all the base pieces to make sure they're screwed down properly. We're going to install the 3.5 inch pieces that are the same width as our 4x4 posts. And then once those are on, we will install 1.5 inch runners side to side that will do the sections in between the rails. And the boys did a really good job getting the metal up top on the fascia up there. And they've also finished screwing off all the bases for our screening in system. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put the screen on. We're going to start from the top, and we're going to work those edges in, applying the spline, and we're going to get that whole section done before we start popping on the cap pieces. Really take your time with the spline and the screen install. It's difficult if it's your first time, but if you've done it a couple times, it's actually really, really easy. So we're going to go in there. We'll try to get a couple examples of how it goes down. We're going to stick about a 5 or 6 inch piece right here, and we're going to kind of just make sure that we're past this first intersection of the screen. Now I'll just plug this in there for the time being. It may stay there. I may cut a new one later. We'll hold that there. Hold me up a little bit more, Wheezy, right here. Yep. And hold it just about like that. We'll work it across together I'm actually going to throw this screen down there. Now we're going to start right here, Wheezy, with the whole one. And we're going to just press this first portion in, and I'll use that blunt edge of the knife right there to get us completely in there. Now, once that's interlocked, you want to pull this out just a little bit tight, not crazy tight, so that you unloosen yourself from there, and you kind of just spin it in your other hand. That'll make it a little skinnier, and then you can just work yourself from the left side all the way to where your hand is holding the pressure on the opposite side. And that'll kind of just lock itself in. You want to completely finish one side before you try to go to another side. And that's because if you try to do multiple sides at the same time, one, you don't have enough hands, but two, you will really get the screen crooked. You know, it's really hard to see these small lines, but you could shift the focus so that these vertical and horizontal lines are nowhere near straight. So Wheezy's holding this up pretty much level all the way across. We started out with our screen pretty much right at the line of the second spline holder. That's going to do the upper portion. And then once we press it in, you can see it gives us that access right there that we'll be able to cut off with our razor knife shortly. One thing you really got to watch out for if you're using the roller is if you move across there too fast, that roller will actually cut the screen itself. And you won't maybe even notice it until you go to put down the bottom. That roller kind of has an indentation in the middle where the spline fits right in between it. And when you press that thing in and then try to roll it really fast, it'll actually cut the screen instead of actually just pressing it in and keeping it tight. Spline is completely inside of this cavity here, and it will not come out without a lot of pressure. Now, when I get to the ends right here, I do like to pull a little bit back out and cut this off right here so that it'll finish up about flush with the end, and I'll be able to start that side with no issues or other spline hanging in my way. William's going to put a little pressure from the opposite corner, both downward and that way. So that way when I come in here, I'm going to tack this very top corner in with my spline and my knife, and to ensure that we have a nice clean finish on the screen while he puts pressure on that side, I will hold this down here with my right hand, kind of in position where these lines, it's going to be really hard to see on the camera, are relatively straight. Now I'll tack that in a few spots really nice and tight so we don't move. And then I'll be able to work this from the top down once we have this tacked and I know where my lines are nice and straight. We'll complete this side all the way down before we start on the other side. So we're going to keep that diagonal pressure down. This right here will straighten out right there. We just want to work it like that, Wheezy, as I come down. The invisible screen. Look, you can't even get through. Invisible screen, y'all. Unbelievable. New age. Oh yeah. Psych. All right, so we're gonna slide this one in just right up against that one side and literally just snap this thing in. There we go. And you can kind of hear it just click right there. As long as you got one side pressed tight to where it goes, you can just literally click the other side. Just snap, crackle, pop, baby, like the Rice Krispie treat. Look at that. And it comes right back off, so there's ever one section, you just literally pull it back off. and it pops right in. Really nice finish. Really makes that screen start to pop out. I can't wait till all the side pieces are on. These little ears you'll see here go right in between these two, and there's actually a lip on there and a lip on here. And there's a counteractive lip on this that fits right in between there, and then two pieces lock together, and that's actually what holds this all together. So when you slide it in, kind of slide it in, I'm going to do a little extreme so you can just make a visual reference here, but you get in from way over here and then slide that one in like so. And once that one's slid in, you can just pop that other side in, and then you can literally just keep pressure towards yourself and pop it in. Well, that's gonna do it for today, guys. I think we're wrapping up like day 6 or something like that. We were able to make it a long way through the details, the metal, the screen install, the base and cap system, the last bit of the white rails going down the stairs, but we're not gonna quite finish it up today. So we're gonna see you guys again on the next one. And until then, you guys have a great day. They're really gonna be pissed when they find out I wore slides on the roof. What in the world is this guy really telling us how to build a lean-to? And now a screened-in porch with slides on? There's no way. No way he knows what he's doing, y'all. It's been a while, honestly about 1.5 years, but unfortunately our construction schedule did not allow us to finish shooting the build. And it was far too important, and we had too much invested not to show you guys some of the finishing touches that we had done here. One thing that you guys were unable to see was the railings installed on top of the stairs. The only thing we added was a 4x4 sleeve over top of the post and the vinyl rails connecting directly to the 4x4 through the vinyl trim here. We had installed a screen door, and honestly, this is one of the most important areas of the build. It's where everybody goes in and out. You have the door opening. It creates access for us, but it also creates access for mosquitoes and flies and other bugs that we're trying to keep out. So we have installed this door here inside of the 4x4s, and to accommodate the spacing for the door, these posts are separated at 36.5 inches. The door actual size is 36 exactly. The spacing is provided there so that the door will open and close properly. You don't want that spacing on the 4x4s to be the exact measurement of the door itself, because when you open and try to close or attach the hinges, you won't have enough space. So one easy way that we've come up with to accommodate for that and to prevent the bugs from coming in is adding what we call a door stop or a backstop, but it's just any piece of wood that you can find, and we used a decking board in this case. We ripped it down smaller than the 3.5 inch width of the 4x4. We took the measurement of the door, which is 1 1/8. We gave ourselves an extra 1/8 of an inch of play, which is 1 1/4 inch, and we created a rip 2 1/4 inches and put it on the inside of the 4x4, and just literally screwed that to the inside of the 4x4, the framing above, and the other side as well, so that when we attach the hinges in the door, it will close and not let bugs come through, but open and close freely. So that is an easy way to get your door installed, and exactly how we do ours, allowing you to either latch it on the outside or the inside. It does keep that option. So just a really nice touch to the finishing product here. I love how he decided on the PVC doors. That way they'll match really nice with the railings and posts that we have already installed on the deck. Just thought it was a really good additive, and honestly, it looks really, really great. You can see here that we literally have no gap all around the door, so this door stop is working exactly the way it needs to. So we were also able to finish the last trim pieces. The screen was installed, but we were able to put these last finishing caps all around just to give it that nice finishing touch and not let the rubber grommets pop out. So just really, really nice finish to the deck. We were able to get the last bit of the New England caps installed, as well as all the rails finished. You can see that these rails have been here for 1.5 years. With a power wash or a light scrub with a rag, these can be cleaned, as you can see here, just with my hand, and just come back to brand new. So a really nice feature about the vinyl rails, and something to think about when you go with wood decking versus composite or vinyl materials. They can be very easily cleaned. It just needs, honestly, one spring cleaning, one fall cleaning. And if you really had to, only one a year would be just fine. The homeowner has added some shade blinds on the far end, which is really cool. The sun sets on his property on that side, so that's a nice blocker to keep that sun out of his face. He has his brand new wicker furniture, which is a really lovely color, by the way, and he's matched that to his outside area carpet as well as his coffee table. So really nice use of the deck. You can see he's added his grill to the outside portion, which I highly recommend. You don't want to be grilling underneath your vinyl roof, as all that heat will go somewhere, which will be right into your ceiling. Just a really, really solid build, and cool to see how they're using the product that we built. As you guys may remember, we have transformed this job from a 22-year-old decaying deck into a brand new screen porch open deck combo. And we're hoping that we gave you guys a couple of ideas of what you can do with your outside space. It may not be the same dimension, it may not be the same shape, but the building materials and the building principles are exactly the same. So I hope this gives you guys a couple of ideas and product lines that you can maybe use on your project. And even if you can't do your own project, I hope it gives you the confidence and the know-how that if you hire a subcontractor or a general contractor, you know what to expect. We're super glad you guys, if you stayed this long and watched the supercut, thank you very, very much. We're super happy that you were able to make it. This is the first of its kind, something that I'm very proud of, my editor's idea. We want to send a shout out and thanks to Ryan Pace, the owner of Haywire Productions. Check him out if you have any videography, editing needs, you need podcast space, Haywire Productions. You'll have a link in the description below. Make sure you guys hit the like and subscribe button. Don't miss out on any of the cool events we have coming up. Hint, 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 there might be a better lean-to video coming soon. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. And until next time, you guys have a great day.